My son's getting married next month in my backyard, but he says I'm not invited outside. Says I'll ruin the aesthetic. Funny, isn't it? The land he's using is mine, and so is the smile on his face. I gave him everything. I wonder what he'll do when he realizes I just took it all back. I wasn't always this tired. I used to wake up before dawn, pull on my old boots, and walk the fence line before the rooster even thought to crow. This land, 3 acres of stubborn soil and tangled roots, wasn't much, but it became something because I made it something. After Harold passed, folks said I'd sell the farm, said no woman should be out here alone, fixing fences and tending grapes. But they didn't know me. They didn't know what it meant to raise a son on your own, to stretch every dollar into dinner and every hug into hope. Jacob was 5 when I planted the first vine. I remember him running barefoot through the rows, yelling about dinosaurs in the dirt. He used to help me water when his fingers were small enough to fit inside a mason jar. He'd ask, "Will the grapes grow up tall like me?" And I'd smile, nod, and say, "Taller." Back then, I believed everything I poured into him would come back tenfold. That one day, he'd sit beside me on the porch, watching the sunset spill gold across the fields, and say, "You did good, Mama." I gave up a lot so he could become the man he is now. I skipped dentist appointments and birthdays, sold my wedding ring to cover college textbooks, ate toast so he could eat chicken, never told him I was scared of debt, of dying too early, of being forgotten. But mothers don't ask for medals. We just hope that our sacrifices aren't invisible, that the arms we held are still warm with memory. I used to picture his wedding all the time, how I'd help arrange chairs under the oak tree, how I'd wear my soft blue dress, the one with tiny embroidered daisies, how he'd walk me to my seat, kiss my forehead, and whisper, "None of this would be here without you." I thought I'd earned that much. But not all children remember where they came from, and some pretend their roots don't exist at all. He came by on a Thursday, didn't call. Just pulled up in that fancy SUV I helped him lease when he first got his law job, back when he still said thanks after dinner. I was kneading biscuit dough when he knocked once and let himself in like he always used to. Except this time, he didn't even wipe his boots. "Hey, Mom," he said, barely glancing at the flour on my hands or the kettle steaming behind me. "Got a minute?" I wiped my palms on my apron and nodded. "Always." "What's on your mind, Honey." He sat stiff on the edge of the couch, like he didn't want to settle too long in something soft. Then he said it, just like that. "Vanessa and I were talking, and we think it's better if you don't come out during the wedding." The words hit me so hard, I forgot to breathe. "I don't understand," I said slowly. "You're getting married here, on the land your daddy and I built with our bare hands." He shifted, looked anywhere but at me. "It's a very curated event," he said. "Vanessa's got a vision. Minimalist, clean lines, white and beige tones. Rustic, but not too literal. And, well, the scarf, your health, the whole look, might be a little distracting." Distracting. I just stood there, heart thudding against my ribs like it wanted out. He kept talking. "We'll FaceTime you during the ceremony, and we'll send lots of pictures." I didn't say a word. That's when Vanessa walked in, tall and smooth, her heels clacking like punctuation marks. She looked around the room like she was smelling mildew. "So this is the place," she said. "Cozy, real vintage." Jacob turned to her. "Vanessa, this is..." "I know." She cut him off. "Hi, Mrs. Monroe." No eye contact. I smiled gently. "I'd like to be there, even if I just sit in the back." She finally looked at me. Her eyes were glassy. "We already have a dress code and seating chart. I'm sure you understand." Pause. Have you ever had someone look at you like you didn't belong in your own home? If you have, then you know exactly how it feels. "Tell me I'm not the only one." Jacob tried to soften the blow. "You know we love you, Mom." "But this isn't personal. It's about presentation." I nodded slowly. And that's when I knew. It wasn't about me being too sick. It was about me being too real. And they didn't want real in their perfect little picture. Not when real had wrinkles. Not when real had calluses. Not when real had a name like mine. That night, the house felt colder. Not from the weather. It was late spring, and the windows were cracked just enough to let the breeze carry in honeysuckle. But there was something else. A kind of emptiness that crept through the walls, soft but heavy, like dust on old hymnals. I sat alone in the kitchen, the same spot where I'd once held Jacob's math homework in one hand and a baby bottle in the other. Same worn table where we'd eaten tuna casserole on Fridays and whispered secrets over blackberry cobbler. Now it was just me, a half cup of cold tea, and a silence so thick it rang in my ears. On the table sat the old manila folder, the one labeled Will, Jacob, in my careful handwriting. I opened it slowly, hands shaking, not from age, but from something else, something deeper. I stared at the numbers, the deeds, the accounts. 3 acres of land, 2 outbuildings, both in solid condition. A bank balance large enough to surprise him. Every penny saved with blistered palms and long winters. All of it set to go to a boy who couldn't stand the sight of me. I walked to the hallway and paused at the mirror, the one Jacob used to make funny faces in before church. Now, it only showed a pale, tired woman with a scarf wrapped tight, not to hide, but to hold herself together. And I realized I wasn't crying. There were no tears. Just a hollowness where something used to live. Pride, maybe, or trust. Or the last little sliver of hope I hadn't noticed was still hanging on. I turned off the lights, one by one. Living room, kitchen, hall. Each flick of the switch felt like a closing chapter, each room dimming behind me like a stage after the curtain falls. In my bedroom, the Bible sat open on the nightstand. Not by chance. I'd left it open that morning to Proverbs 31. She is clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future. I sat down at the edge of the bed, my hands folded in my lap, my wedding ring long gone, sold to pay for Jacob's textbooks, but I kept the receipt. I don't know why. Maybe to remind myself that some losses have names. Others just leave a shadow. And that night, I realized I hadn't just lost my place at the wedding. I'd lost my place in my own son's life. And maybe I was never really in it to begin with. The sun rose early the next morning, but I didn't. I lay there, staring at the ceiling fan turning slow above me. It didn't matter how many times it spun. Nothing in this house was going to feel right again. By 9, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my hands folded in front of me like I was waiting for a prayer I no longer believed in. The old manila folder was still there, open, quiet, accusing. So I picked up the phone and called Mavis Chambers, my lawyer and friend of over 50 years. She didn't ask why I was calling, just said, "You ready?" I said, "Yes." By noon, she was sitting across from me with her briefcase open and her readers perched on the tip of her nose. I slid the old will toward her. She didn't even glance at it. "Throw it away," I said. She nodded. Then I handed her a yellow legal pad with 4 lines written in my handwriting. Shaky but firm. "Harvest for hope," I said. "That's who gets it now. The farm, the accounts, everything. Those women deserve a place where they aren't told to hide." Mavis blinked. "All of it." I looked out the window. "This land taught me how to survive. My son taught me what it costs to forget who you are. I'm not leaving this world with my name tied to someone who made me feel small in my own skin." She took a breath. "You sure you want to do this?" "I'm not dying yet." "Mavis," I said, "but I'm done waiting to be remembered." That evening, I burned the original will out back in the same pit where Jacob and I used to roast marshmallows. The flames curled the paper, then swallowed it whole. It didn't scream. It didn't fight. It just disappeared. Like me at his wedding? As the fire died down, I sat there with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders and whispered, "You didn't erase me, Jacob. You just reminded me I was never really seen." And now, I was going to write the ending myself, quietly, clearly, and without apology. The morning of the wedding came with still air and pale light. I was up before the birds, not from excitement, just habit. The kind you keep after decades of early farm chores, the kind that doesn't leave. Even when the world does, I bathed slow, careful with the aches in my shoulders. I wrapped my scarf a little tighter than usual. Not to cover. Not anymore. Just to hold steady. My dress was simple, soft gray, the one I wore every Easter to church. I pinned the old silver dove brooch near my collarbone. Mama gave it to me the day I graduated high school. It still caught the light when I turned just right. By the time Mavis arrived, I had already brewed the tea, packed 2 envelopes in my purse, and folded the scarf I planned to leave behind. "This is the one," she asked, holding the envelope marked Jacob Monroe. I nodded. "The others for Vanessa." She didn't ask what was inside. She didn't need to. The vineyard looked like a wedding catalog come to life. Rows of folding chairs, string lights, champagne tents, people in pastels, laughing soft behind sunglasses. No one recognized me. Just how I wanted. I took my seat, third row, edge of the aisle. Like a forgotten aunt, I watched them say their vows with ease, with pride. He didn't even look my way. The minister said something about honoring those who raised you. Jacob blinked, but didn't flinch. When the applause started, I gave Mavis a small nod. She stood, walked calmly across the grass, and handed each of them an envelope. Right there, beneath the floral arch, Jacob's smile faltered. Vanessa frowned, confused, and me, I stood, slowly, quietly, left my folded scarf on the chair like a pressed flower, and walked away from the life I had built, but was never allowed to be part of. I didn't cry. I didn't look back. Let them keep the photos, the curated playlist, the glass centerpieces. I was leaving with something better. Dignity. And a signature on a new will they'd never see coming. They say she vanished, that after the envelopes were handed off and the cameras stopped clicking, the mother of the groom slipped away without a sound. Some thought I went home, some assumed I died. The truth is quieter than both. 2 days after the wedding, I boarded a plane with one carry-on, a leather handbag, and no forwarding address. The house was already sold. The transfer to Harvest for Hope completed. No press release, no family meeting. Just a clean signature on the dotted line. I landed in a coastal village in southern Spain, somewhere no one knew my name. I rented a small white cottage with chipped blue shutters and a lemon tree out front. In the mornings, I walk to the market. The flower lady saves me white lilies. In the afternoons, I sip tea on the patio, wrapped in an old quilt. No one here knows I used to run a vineyard. No one asks what happened to my son, and I like it that way. Back home, I hear stories spread. Someone uploaded a photo of me, taken years ago at a women's shelter fundraiser. I was smiling, arm in arm with a woman in a wheelchair. The caption read, "She gave us everything her family threw away." It went viral. Massey Grove. The land I once farmed is now a home for elderly women with no one left. They plant herbs, raise chickens, and sit beneath the same oak tree Jacob wanted for his wedding arch. Vanessa left him, I hear. Said, "You couldn't even keep your own mother. What else can't you keep?" Jacob tried to contest the will, but Mavis had it ironclad. I left him a letter, one last one. "You were born from love. But when love grew tired, you called it ugly. You didn't bury me, Jacob. You buried yourself in silence. I'm not bitter. I'm free. And sometimes, that's more powerful than revenge. If you're still here, tell me this. Have you ever been erased by someone you raise? Leave a comment. Not for pity. Just so we know we're not alone. Because silence doesn't mean we disappear. Sometimes, it means we've finally come home.